Good afternoon, everyone. This is Eileen Pollis from the Long Beach Public Library. We're doing our Memories program today in celebration of Black History Month. And I was supposed to do a discussion today about all the churches and temples in the city of Long Beach. But because today is February 1st, today is the start of Black History Month, so I had the super idea to follow up Martin Luther King's program with today's program on the Christian Light Missionary Baptist Church and Reverend Jj Evans, who was its founder. So I wanted to welcome you all today to my program, and thank you for all the people out there who helped me get this program together. I have Bishop Melton online, I have Deacon Garrett online, I have Miss Williams online. I have many people online today who have helped me put this program together, and I can't thank you enough from the bottom of my heart. This is a great shot of the Christian Light Church, and they actually have that you could see the R Reverend Jj Evans Boulevard in the left of the photograph. You have a photograph of Reverend Evans, and so I just use this as a shot to open because it just depicts what we're going to discuss today. And I appreciate that. That's right off the Christian Light's website. So thank you for that. Bishop Melton, you're the newest pastor, Reverend, for the Christian Light Church. I'm welcoming you today to speak and just tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been with the church.
Okay, well, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. First and foremost, I want to thank God for the opportunity to greet you this afternoon and to thank Eileen Pollis and the Long Beach Public Library for this distinct honor. As you know, February is Black History Month. It's a time when we celebrate the history, the achievements, and the contributions of Black people. To this end, the Christian Light Missionary Baptist Church has been both a pioneer and a pillar in the city of Long Beach. And as I enter my 14th year of pastoral ministry at Christian Light, I do so knowing that I stand on the shoulders of our late founder, the Reverend Jesse James Evans. We thank God and cherish his memory. Reverend Evans had a God-given mission and vision. The mission was to proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ, and the vision was to build an edifice that would honor God and embrace all people. The Christian Light Church, in fact, is the oldest Black church in the city of Long Beach, and it has a very rich history. From the visits of the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his bride to the city of Long Beach and to our church, even up into the renovation of our church after the devastation left behind after Superstorm Sandy. So I just want you to enjoy. Today, you will hear from some who share that rich history of the Christian Light Missionary Baptist Church in Long Beach, New York. Thank you for allowing me this space. May God bless and keep all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bishop. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Deacon Garrett, where are you?
I am right here.
Okay, now our little chat, and when we first spoke, I originally had asked if you would speak today, and I am so glad that you agreed to, because I know that you had Reverend Evans as your mentor, and I wanted you to share some of that with our program today and the people, because I think it's so important. It's not just somebody familial or just, you had a very special relationship because then you were on the pulpit with him and you were preaching. And I think it's so important to see that relationship as well. And it's not just going to church, but being a part of being in church. So thank you for joining us today, and please join us in speaking about it. Thank you.
Surely, thank you very much for the opportunity, and thank you for your hard work of putting this history together. I came to Long Beach in 1972 of December, and I joined the Christian Light Missionary Baptist Church the following year in July of 1973, in which by the end of the year, Pastor Evans had embraced me fully, and he put me as one of the officers in the church on the trustee board. So I sat on the trustee board for a couple of months, actually, and he put me into the Deacon ministry. And I didn't know why I was being chosen to do that, but he mentored me and taught me tremendously of things that were happening and things that were about to happen that I could not see, but he could. And through that relationship, I was elevated to chairman of the board in 1976 as our own Reverend Walter Davis, who was Pastor Evans' shadow, his sidekick. They did tremendous work together to establish the Christian Light Missionary Baptist Church from 710 Riverside Boulevard to the new edifice at 620 Park Place. They were my mentors. They taught me everything I know. And I could not understand why I was being chosen, but I began to realize that I was being groomed for greater things. And through that relationship, we came forward and built the second floor of the Margaret Evans Center through our own giving without bank financing. One of the things that was so precious to me was that a lot was accomplished through the visionary ministry of Pastor Evans and through his motivation. But when I came, everybody was at work, and he motivated the women. It was the women who were doing the bulk of the work and the outreach, and they just were tremendous in what they were doing. We had a great music department, and we were outstanding in that area all across Long Island. And we just praise the Lord continuously for the great things that he was doing for us. We must mention that when I came, we had Deacon Leonard Hardy, we had Deacon Andrew Coffey, Deacon Raymond Minchin came later, Deacon Wayne Van Sr. came later, we had Deacon Freddie Harris, Deacon Lawrence, and Deacon I'm not going to get killed. I can't remember his name, but we had the three of those came later. We cherish everything that God has done for us, and we look forward to doing even greater works. We cannot have done the work without the faithful members of our church, especially our senior members. Our senior members have been outstanding, and we want to acknowledge them at this time. And we are currently putting together a drive to increase our membership and extend welcome to all of our neighbors and our friends and our community.
Thank
we
you.
just thank God that he has provided you to compile this history, that we might continue to look to the past how he has blessed us, and as we look toward the future of what we know that he's going to do. We want to thank you and encourage you to continue, for you have a talent for what you do, and we pray that God's richest blessing will rest upon you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Deacon Garrett. And yes, and I know some of the people that were our deacons in your church. We'll chat about that in a little bit. And actually, here he is. The Christian Light had many groups, but this is one group that was in the newspaper, in the Herald, back in '99 in celebration of Black History Month. And the headline in the Herald is beautiful. It says, "The library gets some religion." And basically, the JJ Specials were performing at the library, and they were singing spirituals, and it was a great performance. Dennis Devine was the person who wrote the article. It was a full page. And of course, Deacon Freddie Harris, you just mentioned him. He was a wonderful, wonderful man. I knew him personally. I worked with him, and I can't tell you and thank him enough for being the person that he was, and that he brought not just to the church, but to everyone else. He was part of my life and my family's life. And I do miss him. Yeah.
Deacon Rufus Parker, that's the name that I left out.
And I think he was mentioned in this article, but you could see in the article, you could see the choir and of course, Deacon Freddie Harris singing to the audience in celebration of Black history. So this is a great article. I have to thank a lot of people, so I'll save the thank yous for the end. I know there were only 3 pastors. Of course, Reverend Evans is the first, and of course, the most important, because he is the person who started everything. But in between, when he left, of course, we lost him. I know Reverend Mobley was here, and of course, we have now Bishop. So within that confine, I just put a mention of Reverend Mobley, since he was, I think, the second pastor. And of course, this is a beautiful photographs I've gotten. One of them was donated just the other day. I got it from Miss Odom on the right, where he's speaking at the pulpit. And this he was the founder of the church. And these are great shots. This is Reverend Davis with Amy Wilder. So you can't see Miss Wilder's face, but thank you for mentioning Reverend Davis. I've heard about him. So we're going to hear a little bit more about him when we hear our recordings. So basically, this is a sketch of the Christian Light Missionary Baptist Church history. And it's just to highlight that around 1950, that the church was basically founded by Reverend Evans, and their first services, I was told, were at Long Beach City Hall, which would have been the old City Hall in the 50s. And then it does say in this article that Annie Bell Reeder then provided the garage located at 710 Riverside Boulevard. And it says, and it states that she was praised for giving the church a shelter for its beginnings. Now, interesting enough, she was one of the first Black women business people in the community. With her husband, they owned a moving business. You'll see in the next slide. This is the garage. This was provided by the Deacon, and thank you, because there's not too many photos. So I'm glad that you were able to come up with some of these things, because it's hard to talk about something and not see it and to envision it, especially for the younger people who don't remember this, because this no longer exists. So this is referred to as Sister Reeder's garage. And, but I found in Newsday on April 9th, 1962, so this now City Hall, the old City Hall is already done. They're not doing mass there anymore. They're not doing services there. And it says right in the newspaper that Long Beach Christian Light Missionary Baptist Church is having an 11th musical anniversary of church participants at 8 p.m. at the church at 710 Riverside Boulevard. So there it is in black and white in the newspaper, referring to the address of where the church was. But by oral history, everybody knows Rita's Garage. That's what they call it. So, and this is from the Deacon, thank you, in memory of Sister Annie Bell Reeder. And it says that her generous and obedience to God's will remain a vital part of our history and roots in this church. So she was the person who provided that space, and her company, this is a 1964 ad in the Long Beach High School Echo in the yearbook, and there it is, Rita's Moving and Storage. In 1964, this is from the Nassau Star, this is the beginnings of walking to a new church. They're offered voluntary from different organizations and different people in the community, along with Reverend Evans and the church and the trustees, to build a church, a new church. So there's a building fund being raised to make a new church for the Christian Light. This is in the New York Times in 1965. Now you think we live in New York. This is the New York Times, one of the most sophisticated newspapers that we have. And it opens up their ad, Long Island organizations helping Negroes to build a church. So the way they describe it, we don't use this terminology in this day and age in the 21st century. But the most important part of this, though, is that it made the New York Times, and that the project is being focused, that they're looking to raise this money so that they could build their church. And it says that they raised $20,000, and it's with breakfast, dinners, and raffles, theater parties, solicitations, and donations. And the slogan that is quoted in here is, "We don't burn churches, we build them." So how important is that? Amazing. This is from the Nassau Star, 1965, the NAACP, Roy Wilkins, who was the executive secretary. He was the guest speaker at the Kiwanis Club for the benefit of the Christian Light Building Fund. So here again, they're trying to raise money to build the church. So this is a work in progress, and we're getting closer and closer to it. And this is an actual ad. This is from Newsday again, June 3rd, 1965. And here is a model of the view of the church. And there is James, Pastor Evans, Morris Flashman, Judge Robert Kleiner. And this benefit was being held at the Atlantic Beach Hotel. This is 1965. The Nassau Star, December 8th, 65. They're saying that it's December. They're looking forward to having services in their new house of worship. And they're looking forward to the completion and the final stages of building the church. This is Newsday, March 8th, 1966. Mission accomplished. The members of the Christian Light Missionary Baptist Church in Long Beach enter their new building at Park Place and Pine Street recently after their march from the old church at Riverside Boulevard and Harrison Street. Funds for the church were raised in a 2-year drive. So here they are entering the new church. This photograph provided to me by Deacon, this is the Christian Light Baptist House Rockers. He figures it around the 1960s. Cora Evans, Pastor Evans, and Coretta Scott King. Very beautiful photo. I wish I had a date for this. Reverend Jj Evans and the JJ Specials, 1970s. This is from the Nassau Star, March of 1966. The new Christian Light Church opens on Sunday. So basically, the church is completed and it's open for Reverend Evans and for the people to come and worship. This is March 10th, 1966, and you see Reverend Evans looking down at scripture, and this looks like he's giving a service. This is beautiful. He's thanking the new home of the Christian Light Baptist Missionary Church. He's giving thanks. This is a picture of the plaque. It says the Long Beach Interracial Council and Christian Light Missionary Baptist Church, dedicated May 20th, 1972. For those who gave of their time, their efforts to themselves, create this house of worship and community center. And of course, there are many people listed on here that in the community, I mean, even as myself, I'm not that old, I remember a lot of the people on the plaque. So because of their hard work, along with Reverend Evans and the community and the people and the congregation, were able to build the church and the community center, which is dedicated to Margaret Evans. This was 1972. This is an award that was given per a while. Jerome B. Fleischman, Reverend Evans, and Hazel Gary. Now, I read an article that was just given to me by Miss Odom that Hazel Gary, she won actually a 2000 award for Senior of the Year for all her hard work, not only in the church, but in other organizations. She was a school teacher. I think she taught reading. So she was a very, very, very powerful person, not only in the congregation, but in the community. And she's receiving a citation for that. This is in celebration of Reverend Evans when he passed away. This is from April 9th, 2000. And it's very sad because, I mean, he lived a very long life, but it's still sad. But I had to share this with you. In June of 2003, in the Herald, it says, "Heavenly smiles along Evans Boulevard. Park Place changed to honor the late pastor." So they renamed Park Place to Reverend Jj Evans Boulevard. I did not know this, but in doing my research, I came by this. This is a legislative resolution sponsored by Harvey Wiesenberg in 2012 in memory of Jessie Evans, Reverend, who gathered and brought the community together to build a church and to bring the people together from the time that he started here in this parish, in this church. So it is dedicated to him and to his family and to all the people and their hard work for working together to build the church. Deanna Cruse is my first recorded speaker. She graduated Long Beach High School, 1956. Good morning, Ms. Cruse. This is Eileen from the library, and we're going to do a special recording today. We're in celebration of Black History Month, which is going to be starting in February 1st of 2022. We're segueing to the history of the Christian Light Church as part of the Long Beach community. And this is in coordination with the Christian Light Church, Bishop Melton, Deacon Garrett, and many of the parishioners who will be coming on to speak on my program on February 1st. And Deanna Cruse today is recording live in her home to tell you about the history of the church, as she's been here for many, many years. And so we want to welcome her from the library and from myself, Eileen. And this recording is part of our history program, which is our Long Beach Memories. Miss Deanna Cruse, welcome. And what can you share today about the Christian Light Church and your coming to the church when you were young, and everything and anything that you want to share with us today?
Good morning, and thank you very much for spending time with me again. I was raised here. I'm 83 now. So I've been with the church since the beginning. Now, prior to Christian Light, and that wasn't the name of the other church in the beginning, let me back up a little bit. Reverend Hall was the preacher out here, the pastor out here. He was on West Fulton Street. I'm pretty sure it was 107 West Fulton Street. Very nice man, very soft-spoken. At that time, it wasn't very many African Americans out here. My family is one of the first families here in Long Beach, other than Sister Wilson, whose father, Reverend Evans, became the pastor after Reverend Hope became the, let me just back up a little bit. I'm jumping the gun a little bit. But anyway, I'm just having so many memories right now. Reverend Hall, I was speaking of him. I don't want to, get sidetracked right here. For whatever reason, after, I don't remember how many years he was here. I never heard how many years he was here. To me, he was from the beginning because that's the first pastor that we had. And we had a walk from 116 East Harrison Street, where we lived, to the west side, to Sunday school. And as I said, it wasn't many African American people here at the time, so it was never full of children. Never full of children. Okay, after Reverend Hall left, is when the other church came into existence. Reverend Evans, I've heard them speak of things other places, but I'm only going to touch what I know, what I saw. Now, I remember Miss Annabelle Rita from 710 Riverside Boulevard. She had 2 rooming houses, that and 123 East Harrison. She gave Reverend Evans a garage, which was behind 710, to have his church in. It was a garage, like if it would rain, your feet would get wet. It wasn't beautiful by any means, but it was a place to worship. And that went on, although Reverend Evans had a dream, and so did the parishioners, had a dream that one day they would be able to have something more, I don't know if suitable is the right word, permanent, something better, permanent, to worship in. And sure enough, it did happen. It took some time, but it did happen because this started out in, from my recollection, I say 1951. And I remember it very clearly to be 1951. But anyway, we stayed back there for years and years. The parishioners band together to do what they could do. Other organizations chipped in to help us build. We had construction workers out here that would donate time, some supplies, whatever. To make a long story short, it did happen. And I think it was 1966, 65, 66, around that time. It did happen, and we did march in, and it was a great feeling. It's a great feeling to walk in to something brand spanking new that God had blessed us to see our dreams come true. And by that time, but prior to this, I don't want to leave out Reverend Davis. Reverend Davis was, like I would say, the last of the 50s when he came out here. And it was a blessing, truly a blessing. Very nice man. He had a family. He devoted so much time, effort, everything to the church, and he is surely missed. I think he's been dead now, maybe 8 or 9 years, something. Anyway, he is surely missed. something I wanted to say. I didn't want to leave out something I wanted to say. Every time I see the color red, I think of Reverend Evans. Reverend Evans loved the color red. He loved the color red, and it just like triggers something. Now, I just want to say this. I'm 83 years old, and I remember, I have a very good memory. I was always a mama's girl. I was always up under my mother, and I had a wonderful mother, and her friends. To this day, I still like, all my life, I've always been drawn to like older people. I love to talk to them, to hear things that they know, which was always more than, of course, me. So I was always like that, and I can remember so many things. You know, from time to time, your mind goes back to certain things that happened when you were a child, certain things with the church.
Tell us about an experience in the church that was in your fondest memory of Reverend Evans or Reverend Davis at a service, something special that you remember.
There's so many.
Well, just pick one and share it with the library and the world. This is our history we're recording today.
You know, it's just so many. It's been, you know, of course, like any church, we have our ups and downs. We have our good and maybe not so good, but we have always been able to come together and work it out. If something happened to you, or you needed something, or weren't able to do a certain thing, it was somebody in that congregation that could help.
Yes, I heard that.
And we were taught to always look out for your fellow man. Don't just think about yourself. You know, and my mother always taught us that too. Never just think about yourself. See, church is not just verses, scriptures. It's not just that. It's not just learning about that. It's not just hearing the preachers hoop and preach. See, when you learn something, when you hear something, you should be able to take it in and apply it, you know, and that's the way it always was. And even with Reverend Hall, I remember that. So many things that you were told when you were children, it sticks with you all through life. And if it doesn't, it's something wrong. It's something wrong. Something wrong. I think I've been blessed to have had some wonderful people, church-going people, Bible-based church to be in, to learn certain things and to teach it to my children, to even like now. I'm 83 years old, but I have a good relationship with people, not too many, much older than me, but I have a good relationship with the older people and the younger ones. Good. You know.
And congregation is important. I've heard stories about Reverend Evans that, and I remember the stores actually, the drugstore and the meat store up on Park Street, that he used to have accounts and he would actually help people if they needed food or anything. He would cover them and if he would share with them.
That's the type of a person he was.
Yeah, so I've heard these stories and to convey, you know, it's one thing to, you know, just be a part of a congregation and lead a congregation, but to go out from your personal life and to go out and support your community and the people in it. It's so important. It makes you more of just a reverend. It's beyond that, because the charity and sharing of his own self and how much work he gave to the people and to the children.
Right. He always, very nice man. I think he would have given you the shirt off of his back. He never took a salary. Never took a salary.
Yeah, I've heard he went to work every day. He was a hard worker.
Yeah, I think he worked in a mattress company or something in the city for years and years. But that's the way it was. That's the way it was. And back then, everybody looked out for everybody. And people respected. It was a lot of respect back then that you don't get now. You know, like now you might see kids hollering and cursing and doing all kinds of stuff in the street. Back in the day, I'm not saying it didn't happen, but when an adult came by, you know, and especially the preacher, oh no, you didn't do stuff like that. And he was the type that would put his hands on you. But see, back then, people could chastise other people's children and everything. Now, my kid's godmother, my mother's very best friend, Miss Patty Claire, Lord, she used to tear us up. You know, if we chewed gum, she didn't ask for the gum. She would stick a hand down your throat and break it out. You know, if you had candy, she'll take it and eat it. You know, so I'm just saying he would have did funny. Yeah, but, well, he did what was good for everybody. So, but you know, so what was the one thing in your mind that is like the best memory of going to the Christian Light Church and it affected your life? How did it do that? Like some people, I played church. Yeah, I played it, but I always wanted to do better. And see, Reverend Davis used to always say, when you know better, you do better. Now, I remember this is something that just stayed with me and nobody said anything to me, but I used to play cards, going to church, in the choir, everything else, missionary, and it bothered me because I knew better, but I was just doing this. Now, a turning point in my life, I think, and one thing that I really remember is you can't play a game. To me, the Missionaries is the most sacred organization in church. And I'm gambling on the weekend, maybe on Saturday night, but I get up and go to church on Sunday. I didn't want to be like that, so I had to make a choice. So my cards had to go, because I always wanted to do better because I was learning better. My mother and Reverend Evans' wife were very good friends. And so it was like a big happy family, so to speak, even though it took some time to get organized, to get settled. You know, see, there are rules of God, and there's rules of like life, you know, but they combine. They do combine. I remember, let me back up to Reverend Hall. You know, we used to have to pass the candy store to get to the over on the west side of the Sunday school, and we would buy our little stuff and try to hide it. We used to carry pocketbooks back in that day for kids and hide our little stuff. And he would come up to us like he could see through our little bags and stuff. And he'll say, "You got some, maybe like good and plenty. I know you got this and that. Don't you set up any need it? Because they would tell. They would tell. All these things, I remembered all my life. I remember. And I used to have a problem with some of the younger ones because I became assistant to Sister Wilson with the children's choir, the youth department and whatever. And because of the way that I was raised, I guess, used to try it on them, you know, try to get them to be nice and they said be a little hard on them, but it wasn't that. You know, it's just that if it was good enough for me, it's good enough for you. You know.
Well, it's old-fashioned times.
Right. I have no regrets in my life growing up out here because, you know, we never had a real problem. I'm speaking of when I was coming up, you know, with race or whatever. My mother made us read. You had to read. She used to make us go to the library. It was
On Park Place.
Here.
Yeah, on Park Place. There was a branch. Yep, in the 40s and 50s.
You say you have nothing to do, read a book.
Read a book.
I'm tired, read a book.
So basically, your life was empowered by your family,
My family
and the church. And this is the celebration of a community and the church and the people who were in the church, not just the pastor, but the people themselves and their sharing.
Right.
So I think it's a wonderful thing that you had that time and that experience, and for our children and to pass it down. And yes, you did good, because making those decisions are hard sometimes.
Yeah.
So, but I really
love to play cards. But I'm not saying I was sin free, but that was a biggie with me. That was a big, and I think I got that from my father, because my father used to play cards.
But it doesn't matter now. But you know what? As long as you know how this has changed your life, and that the people who were there were spiritual to give you guidance. You know, Reverend Hall and Reverend Davis and Reverend Evans. So we're glad to have them.
And Deacon Garrett's mother, Grandma Garrett. You know, all these people have certainly had an influence on my life. You know,
yes.
They certainly have. But I don't want to leave anybody out, but I'm just saying.
Right,
you know,
but those are the people that come to your mind at the moment. But yes, of course, there's probably many, many times and many people. But in celebration of Black history, it's important to keep what we have alive, because as you are saying that you're 83, and whomever else is in the community that is left that will remember to preserve what was there. And the church is still there, and there are young people who go to church today and they're singing in church.
Yeah, but you know what? It's not like it used to be. The kids, they don't come to church because the parents don't make them come. I just wanted to say this to you. I don't know if you're on a recorder or whatever.
Well, do you want me to stop it?
No. You know, I've never been a likable person for whatever reason.
I think you're a wonderful person.
But if you would say, what have I done? If I would say, what have I done to you to make you feel this way or whatever? You couldn't give me a reason, because I'm not like that. And I just wanted to say everything that I say is because I saw it, I lived it. I'm not relying on anybody's words.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I just, like I said, I have no regrets as far as my life here growing up and learning things and my church experience. None whatsoever.
I thank you for that. And I'm glad to have you on our program, sharing not only the history of the church and what you remembered, but also how it came to help you and to, how we evolved, how we changed for the good.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for sharing with us today. And you will be on my program on February 1st.
Thank you.
You're welcome. At 2 p.m. And there's only going to get...
So Ms. Cruse had another thought after we left, and I just want to share you that one thing. She said that in the beginning, they were baptizing the children in the church at the pier, which would be down in the west by the People's Church. And I thought that was very extraordinary information. And I'm glad, I should have had the tape still rolling when she told me that, but she said that I could just tell you. So that was fascinating, because yes, we do know that there was fishing pier down there and by the People's Church. She said that's where they were baptizing children at that time. Now we have Jessie Wilson. She's Reverend Evans' daughter. She graduated Long Beach High School in 1960. And here we go.
Good morning, Ms. Milson. How are you today?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. This is Eileen from the Long Beach Public Library. Yes, and we're going to be talking about our program today, which will be featuring your video that we're recording today. Today is January 20th, 2022, and we're speaking to Jessie Wilson, who is the daughter of Reverend Evans from the Christian Light Baptist Church. And we're creating her history today for her memories of her father and the memories of her going to part of the church and anything else she wants to contribute to our program. Program is going to be on the Long Beach Library Zoom on February 1st at 2 p.m. And you'll come and join us and to see all our memories, and we'll share them and we'll be all together. Miss Wilson, how are you today?
Okay.
Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to start with sharing memories about your father, Reverend Evans, when he was pastor at the Christian Light Church.
There were so many.
Take any one you want, any special memory you have to share with us.
There was no, some Martin wasn't here for all of them.
Pick your favorite one.
Favorite one. One of the favorite ones was we lived in Queens. We lived in Jackson Heights, and he commuted when he started to go to the church. Not that the church there now, but there was a Reverend Hall here. I forget the name of that church, and he worked in that ministry in that church. And something happened with that church, and it kind of like, you know, wasn't church anymore. And so my father continued to come here, and then he came and he started the church in the garage. Well, everything is different, but the garage was in a different place, the city garage, than where it is now. And the city, you know, allowed him to use some of the property there for the church. We renovated that. What would you call it?
Was it at first at City Hall?
No.
No?
It wasn't City Hall first. Might have been at City Hall first. I'm not sure now. Might have that one.
And then 710 Riverside.
And then we went 710 Riverside.
Right.
That was a little.
That's okay. You got it. You're right on the money.
I can only get my sister too.
You're right on it.
She was a little older. She would know exactly. We were at 710 Riverside in the city. It was a city garage, I think it was. And they told my father, you know, he could, he was looking for a place. They told him, well, if you want that building, you know, so we had the church in there. We had church for, I don't know, a lot of years. I don't know how many years now.
Is it Miss Rita's garage?
It wasn't that garage, let me see. Yeah, I'm trying to think about that. I think because I think that 710 Riverside, oh, we're just going way back. There was housing there near it. I'm trying to remember that, get it right. That might have been her garage. I'm not exactly sure. And I have to ask my sister. But there was housing in that area. People
right
there.
Of course.
And that's what this was. It was a part of, you know, those buildings.
Of course. And tell us about the church and the congregation and your dad.
Well, the congregation of people at that time, it wasn't a whole lot of people here. Well, not that I saw anyway. But at the church, there was mostly there were seniors, and a lot of the women that were here, they called it sleep-in because they actually lived with the people that they worked for. So they were a part of the congregation, and it was more women than men. And some of the men that were here, wherever they lived, I don't know where they worked, but you know, there was a few men at the church. But there was, it was more women because the women worked in the homes of these people that they worked for.
Right.
And at that time they called it sleeping.
Right. So tell us about what would go on in church on, I would guess, on Sunday.
Well, on Sunday, when you come to church, there was a music part. You open the church up with the music. And then this is regular service. And sometimes they would have a special service. But every Sunday, regular service. Different people from different committees and different groups at the church would do what they call the devotional period. They would open that up with prayer and with singing. And then they would have the secretary of the church. He or she would be called upon to give any announcements that was pertinent. Because they got all the not so spiritual part of the church. They did that first.
Right.
Because once you get into the spiritual part of the church, you want to keep it that. So they did that. They had what they call the devotional period.
Right.
Somebody would read the scripture from the Bible. Two people would do it. Somebody would read. They had designated people pretty much, or designated groups that did. Although the people varied, but those particular groups of people did it. They would open the service up, and then when they had the prayer and they had the singing, they would turn it over to the pulpit, and whatever minister was in charge, he would carry out the rest of the service.
Right. So was there anything that when your dad would do a service that he would say to the congregation that may have made a change in your life? How did it affect you?
How did it affect me?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said how did it affect me.
Well, it would be you and the congregation, but I'm sure that the message is for everyone.
Yeah, well, it definitely had an effect on his family.
Right.
Because in those eras, sometimes a lot of the pastors, that was their job. Like they didn't have another job. Some of the churches that we knew, and some of the pastors. But my father had a regular, 40-hour week job, like everybody, like other people. Like normal, regular people.
Of course.
So some of the ministers at that time, they didn't do that. Their ministry, that was their job.
Right.
But now the people in the churches, well, I'm talking about here, pretty much Long Beach and around here, was different than other places. Because my father knew a lot of pastors and ministers, and we worked with those churches. They call it fellowship.
Yes.
We would go over there and have a service over there. They would come over here and have a service over here, that kind of stuff. The churches with fellowship.
Right. That's beautiful.
And, that was pretty nice. You got to meet a whole lot of other people and other pastors. And the pastors got together. They had associations of the pastors. I mean, it was really, it was really good. And they had a lot of classes, and they set up schools in the churches. And
did you have they have a Bible school for kids?
A Bible school at the church, yeah.
Yeah.
And one time here, and I'm older now, and this was then they wanted to, in the school system here in Long Beach, one of the ladies, I think she was a minister that came here, and she was trying to see how if there was any way she could establish any kind of religious education in the school system here. But when you get into that, it gets kind of, I don't know what the word is, because you have people of different religions, and at that time, the Jewish people, that was predominant. They were like religiously, I guess you would say, they were maybe 70-80% of the people. If you look, from that aspect,
right?
So
that wouldn't have happened anyway in a public school, but in school in the Christian Light Church, you would have a Bible school.
Yeah, and most of the churches, even in that day, because Long Beach was predominantly Jewish.
Right, I understand.
So, but most of the other churches, there was what's that name, a Catholic church, because we worked with them too. I forget the name now, right now.
That does not matter. But in the meantime, we're going focus on Reverend Evans and his services and how he helped the people. Tell us about that.
Okay. All right, let me see. We were in City Hall, and then the church really needed a place to worship. City Hall they were very good, and they were very nice. But in the Baptist church, at least in those days, sometimes they would have other functions. So it wasn't just the Sunday 11 o'clock service. So we were in City Hall, and they allowed us to use City Hall, for different things. I think the city was very good, but it's pretty good about that. And they allowed that. And some people didn't like it. But I think there was some people, with the lady over here, she was from the Catholic Church, one of them at the time, and she had an issue with it, but she said she was representing her church. So, but I don't remember anybody other than maybe her and one other person that came,
Right.
you know, to say something. But nobody else seemed to have a problem.
Right. But the success, though, is that your father did able to help the community and then raise the money to build the church that's there.
Oh, yes.
Right. So tell us about that part.
We had church in the city hall. And I don't know for how long. But for quite a while,
Right.
they allowed us to use the building and this and that. And
Do you remember, were you around at that point? Because you were probably out of school by then when they started collecting the funds to build the church that's on Park Place.
yeah, I mean, I was here. I lived here.
Right.
But some of the time I was in school.
Right.
And
What do you remember about them building the church?
I remember when we had, well, let me see. Everything's all different now. Riverside. The church was 710 Riverside Boulevard, but you know, everything's all different now.
Right, but go to now to 620 Park Place, where the church is now.
Oh, okay, we say, okay.
So that's around 66, I think.
I'm trying to think, yeah, maybe. But we were in 710 Riverside. And, one of the ladies there said the garage, the church was in the converted.
It is
710. There was a building 710.
right. We got that.
Riverside, you got 710.
Yes, but we're moving now to 620 Park Place, which is the churches now that your father had people in the community to the organizations to help raise money to build the church that is there now.
Right, because we was at the church within the garage of
Right.
710.
Mm-hmm. But you eventually moved to the Christian Light Church that is at Park Place. It's the church that is there presently. Your
Right,
father was
and
pastor.
from the garage to there. Yeah.
Right. So talk about the one that is on Park Place. That's the new church, which now has been there for many years because it opened in the 60s.
Right, yeah. So we moved there to that church. And so many people, you know, were a help to my father. And my father was, well, he worked with everybody.
Who was the other pastor that worked with your father? Do you remember?
Let me see. Well, there were some people that came and they were there for a while. That's why I'm trying to think who would I even name. Other one man, no, I can't think of his name. Right now, I can't think of his name. That's terrible. But in the Baptist church, you had deacons. You know, you had lay people,
Right.
and you had the deacons. Now the deacons were, you know, they were like the next step down from the pastor. And we had a couple of older men that were the deacons there at the church at the time. I can't remember their name. But Deacon Balaam was one of them, him and his wife. Let's see who else was there. Deacon Jeter. But at that time, they were already senior citizens themselves.
Right.
Trying to get the church established. And that was a lot of work. It was a lot of work.
But he accomplished a lot.
Yes, he accomplished a lot.
In a short period, in about a decade, he accomplished a lot.
And then he had a full-time job.
Right.
And in that era, a lot of maybe you think even now too, I think a lot of the pastors of different churches, the different denominations, if they don't call them pastor, you know, most of them, even things starting back then, but they didn't have jobs, you know, like everybody else. I mean, that was their job.
Right, I know. But your father was a very hardworking man.
But he had a full-time job
Right.
already before he went to the ministry.
Right.
And he kept his job.
Yes.
Now he did all of that, you know, and then when we were living, what they call Jackson Heights, Queens, there was
Right.
housing that they set up for the people in the military. So we moved there and we lived there for a while.
And he commuted back and forth from Queens. When you moved to Long Beach, though, how old were you? Do you remember?
I don't know. How old was I? I was old enough to know I didn't like a whole lot of stuff.
Well, moving away from what you know, yeah.
You know, we were in Jackson Heights, we were in school there. You know, I don't. Huh?
High school here?
Did you graduate high school here?
Graduated high school.
Long Beach?
Yeah, I think so.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna look for your yearbook picture.
Yeah, okay. my yearbook over there, Margaret?
No. But I have it at the library. I can look it up.
Oh, you can look it up.
I can look it up. So basically, now we're at the Park Place Church, and your father's a reverend, taking care of the parishioners, holding a full-time job, and getting this church built. And so the membership, of course, by this time starts to grow. Am I correct? I'm sure substantially since 1950, when you were at City Hall or at the garage. So the membership grew. And Reverend Evans, I heard very, very good stories. And you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard very good stories about how benevolent he was to the community. That if anybody needed anything, all they had to do was ask him, and he would always try to help them. I heard several people tell me that he set up accounts for people for food, for medicine. These are very extraordinary things, because if you're a working man and you're not rich and you're helping other people who have less than you, it's very, very, it's a lot of kindness in his ministry and what he preached. I mean, I've done a lot of reading about your father, so I'm hoping that you'll share maybe some stories or something very in particular about your dad that just stays with you.
I know to me, he did, well, I was a child by my brother, but to me, he did so many things to so many people. And some of the people, as I got older too, some of the people I felt that they were taking advantage of his, what is the word, generosity? I guess that would be the word, right? Some of the people, you know, was taking advantage of that. There were people that come by here with this story, you know, with that story, you know, that kind of stuff.
Okay, but that's not the majority.
So,
but you know what? Your dad was very open to help people, so I don't think that really bothered him. At least not from what I've heard and not what I read. So, you know, you got to think about the positive in what he did for this, you know, for the community.
but you know, well, I guess maybe because he was a minister, and then let's say there's 2 or 3 people over there, and 2 or 3 people. I mean, everybody. I mean, sometimes those of us, I'm talking about people in his family now, we would have a different opinion of what he had of some of these people.
Okay. But you're entitled.
You know, well, listen, some of these people, we actually knew them, and we saw more than one side of
The story.
Because when they were in his presence, you know, you would think they were, you know, just everything people should be.
Yeah, I know. But your dad was a very kind man. So I'm praying that his kindness is still there today. And of course, we have new bishop who will be speaking, Bishop Melton, on that Tuesday. He is new to the church, of course, but in your father's memory, that this program for Black History Month, it's important because when you're in a community where there's hardly anybody there, but you have some people who are in your congregation, that he's trying to reach out to them and to the people who are not part of the congregation, who actually helped him build the church. So that in that point, this is a very important thing. And I thank your dad for doing that, because without him, there would be no church today standing. There are other congregations, of course, and I will be talking about the other congregations and temples and churches in my March program. But the substantial amount of information that I have about Reverend Evans, your dad, and the Christian Light Church gave me means to be able to do an entire program on it. And I really thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. And, you know, yes, of course, your children and my son as well have different opinions about things. But for the most part, you knew that your dad was a kind person, and he gave to the public, he gave to the people. And I appreciate that. And I'm sure everybody else did too. Do you have any closing thoughts about the church?
We grew up, let me see, I don't know, we grew up in the church, and we lived, I mean, the things that my father went through, And even as a child, to me, it was just, I don't know, to me, it was just amazing. And to me, I thought, now I'm a kid now, and I thought to myself, and sometimes I would ask him questions, and he would very nicely tell me that that wasn't right. Well, I knew, kind of know that wasn't right, but but I knew it was right when he was telling me, right? Like sometimes in situations you have with other people, or especially, and then you get into church, and now you got groups of people, and it's, and things get very different, because when we were in the church in the garage, it was a small congregation, but everybody, was together, right? But as the church advanced, and we had more opportunities to work with more, people. And to me, and I'm a kid now, what do I know? But to me, it was just amazing how the people in the city government and some of the white people in Long Beach, how they worked with my father and how he worked with them. They were at the church, and they were a big help at the church. It was like, a whole bunch of all together.
Right.
All,
that's a wonderful thing.
Together.
It's a good thing.
Yeah. And some of the black people that didn't go to church, they didn't understand it, because first of all, they didn't go to church.
Right.
So those of us there, we started talking to some of the people we knew, inviting them to church. I invited all my white friends to come to church. Some of the teachers came, some of everybody.
Absolutely.
I invited them to come to the church. And my father would welcome them, and one of the teachers at the school, they told me, she says, I came to that church. She says, and she says, I just felt so welcome. And she came back a few more times.
Beautiful.
That, So I says, you came to the church. I said, why did you think it would be different? It would, because it's a church. So she said, well, she said, I didn't know how the people would receive me as a white person. I said, you're a person. I said, there's black people I don't like, there's white people I don't like. You know what I mean? I said, it's not the color.
Right.
So I said, but you can come to the church anytime, and the people are going to be cordial to you and anybody else that comes. We welcome you to come, when we're in worship with us.
Right.
So and white people that started coming to church. And
I thank you for that. That is like, it just goes to show you that the congregation that your father embraced is a good word. It was outreach to everyone, and there was no that it was for everybody. And that actually goes in line with my Martin Luther King program, because he was doing the same type of thing where he was opening up the lines for people to be together and to create equality. So I'm thankful for that. And I'm thankful for your just speaking to us today for my program, from the library and myself. And Margaret, thank you so much for helping me get your mom to record today. Margaret, she's listening. She's here. That's Miss Wilson's daughter. Miss Wilson, do you have anything to add?
For some thoughts. I think you should say something.
You don't have to be on camera. You can just speak.
Some of your thoughts.
No, I just echo everything that my mom had to say. We're godly proud of the contributions that my grandfather, my mother's father, made to Long Beach. We continue to be proud of all that he gave and sacrificed, and we're just proud to continue to live here and see that he still receives the honor and recognition. So we're grateful for that, and thank you for having us.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Margaret, and thank you so much, Miss Wilson. This has been a pleasure, and I hope you both have a very blessed day from us, from the library, and we'll see you on the program on February 1st at 2 p.m.
Okay.
Have a great day, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
And our last speaker is Kathleen Williams. I recorded this on the 26th of this month, and Miss Williams was a wonderful participant, and you're going to get to hear her now.
Good morning, Miss Williams. How are you today?
Wonderful. Thank you, and yourself.
I'm good, thank you. This is an oral history recording today with Kathleen Williams, and it's January 26th, and 2022. And what we're going to be talking today about is Miss Williams' memories of being a part of the Christian Light Church. And I'm so happy that you're here with us for our recording today. This is for our Black History Month recording for in celebration of the church and Reverend Evans and all your memories. And I thank you today for being with the library. And please share any memory about the Christian Light Church and you becoming a part of that. Thank you so much for joining me today. Ms. Williams.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I came to Long Beach in 1958 to marry my husband. And Reverend Evans married us. I believe he probably married everybody back in that time. And Reverend Evans and his wife took Evelyn Jones and I under their wings because we did not have any family here. And coming from a nice, large family, that's kind of frightening. So they took us under their wings, which there's so many people. And on September of 1960, I gave my life to Christ and I united with the Christian Light Baptist Church. So here I am, an old lady, I'm still there. And this church there was located on Riverside Boulevard in a garage that had been converted into a place that you could go in and use by a very
It's okay.
yes,
Don't worry about it.
by a very wealthy business lady, Mrs. Rita. She had allowed Reverend Evans to use that place to have worship there. And the funny part about it, we had to go in, if it rained or flooded, Reverend Evans and Deacon Davis, Walter Davis, they would have to go in with almost hip-high boots to mop up the water so that we can have Sunday morning service. And excuse me, the love that exudes from that little garage was unbelievable. You could always feel the Holy Spirit moving in the place, and there was just such unity. But people really cared for each other and looked out for each other. So I joined the senior choir because that's always my passion, singing, acting, and art. And I was there for about 30 years on the choir. And I had my two children, when I had children, two daughters. They weren't active in the old church, they were too young, but in the new church, they were. And we were known all over the island for our singing. Popular from New York City to the South Shore. But tragedy struck. If I would give this little conversation a topic, I would say from ashes to beauty. That's the way I view it as a format. Tragedy struck January 1962. A terrible fire took place in Reverend Evans' home, which took the lives of his two young sons that could not be rescued from the fatal tragedy. Even now, when I talk about it, I can just feel sensations just talking about it. The community and the city of Long Beach were moved with heart-rending compassion for the Evans family in this great tragedy. The People's Church offered the Evans family their church for this service, and they also had the repast there, which was greatly appreciated by the Evans family and the church family, because we were just devastated. We were just like out, we had nowhere to go. The city of Long Beach were moved in a heart, rendering compassion. Again, the city of Long Beach's fathers, along with surrounding communities with all forms of kindness after the funeral of Reverend Evans' two sons. God opened doors and turned showers of blessings upon the Evans family. The city fathers were determined to help Reverend Evans however they could, to get Reverend Evans this congregation back into housing from that garage. Some of them never knew youth worship in a garage. It became a focal point. Everyone knew, from New York City to the South Shore, and probably even other people had also been touched. Christian Light had their own building fund, but because it couldn't be too much, you put a little stuff there whenever you could. The organizations were formed to help Christian Light Church by Mr. Lester Lewin, Bob Lake, Frank Sutter, Gene Smith, and others. Their information is there. With laboring, we were able to build a new Christian Light Church. We moved in the new church in March of 1966, if I'm not mistaken. That's when we moved in March of 1966. This beautiful church came from ashes to beauty because his house burned, just ashes and rubble. So that's how I make the title, From Ashes to Beauty. Beautiful. To the beautiful church, and have served the community for many years. We had the first soup kitchen. We started in Christian Light Baptist Church, and many outreach missionary missions and contributions to my contribution to MLK was starting the first vacation Bible school in Long Beach, if not just Long Beach, certainly in the North Park area. And we had a yearly parade down Park Avenue, mind you. It was phenomenal. The city welcomed us with open arms. So every year we had this parade, and we had so many children and adults who would come out and participate. And it was headed by Kathleen Williams and the late Garrett, Gloria Perry, Sue Van, Reverend Evans, Reverend Walter Davis, and Jacquetta Odom. And it was a phenomenal program. So these are some of the things that I had done in my church, and just a minute of what I've done in the city of Long Beach. Because the things I've done, I didn't do to be seen. However, you can't run Vacation Bible School in parades without being seen. But I've had some wonderful, wonderful days in Christian Light, and I say had because I'm older now and I'm not able to do what I used to do. But it was a wonderful experience for me to have a family, a church family that when you're young and trying to grow, to be there for you.
And it's just a wonderful experience.
Thank you for that.
And
That's beautiful.
the city, the interracial mission was one of the best things. That's another thing that came out of the ashes. The interracial committee that they had. And they were just very good times. And I find that in Long Beach, we may not always agree with each other, but when there's a tragedy, people come together and help each other. Have you found that to be true?
Yes, absolutely.
And that's not everywhere. My son-in-law said to me that Long Beach reminds him of the last little southern town where people really stuck together and they know each other. And Light has been and still is a big inspiration to me, and I have no intention of ever going anywhere else.
Well, that's a blessing. And thank you very much for speaking today. What you said is very true. And doing my research, I found everything that you've said it's accurate and it's beautiful. And sharing your personal experience, though, is even more cherished because, you know, a church is not anything without the people. And Reverend Evans, I know, really gave to the church, he gave to his congregation. So
he was community oriented.
yes.
He would buy medicine for people that had never been to his church and food. And if they needed medical care, he would see them get to a doctor. And very often he paid for it.
Yeah.
And after he paid for it, some of the people would cross the street to keep from speaking to him, so they would have to pay it back. But it didn't bother him, and it didn't stop him.
Right. Well, that's all part of the goodness in his.
He was a
his
very
work.
wise man, entrepreneurship way ahead of his time.
Yeah.
And very frugal, very fine man. He really cared about his parishioners.
And I'm glad that he took you under his wing.
Sorry, this still going?
Yep. Come on down. Tell me another story.
One of the missionaries and I went to his house to give his wife a break so she could come to church. And all he was saying when we got ready to give events, like, where is the food for the people? He was, in the rooms to mention that they're not well. He didn't know what he was saying, but this is how it was embedded in him to see about the people. Right? He would ask his wife at dinner time when she's with him, well, what are the people going to have?
Yeah, it stays with you. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that he was able to be able to get the people to help in creation of the church. And even though you started off in what you said is the garage and they were in knee-high water, they still were able to praise and to have established a good community for everybody and outreach. I thank you so much for.
I don't want to be remiss.
No, you are.
But I have to mention these other people here.
Okay.
Who's instrumental in helping with the baby Bible school, Miss Jimmy Boatwright, and the entire church family. So I guess some of the other things will be for another time, but they're not exactly about the church. So
Right.
I will leave that for if there's ever another time.
Right.
But
I appreciate everything you've talked to us about today. And this will be on the recording for the library program on Tuesday, February 1st at 2 p.m. on Zoom. So everybody could listen to your words and the other people who have also contributed to this program. I will be doing a program in March on the houses of worship in Long Beach, and we will be discussing that in my next program. But I thank you so much again today for joining us, and the library thanks you. I thank you, and of course, we need to preserve our history, and the only way we can do that is to record it while we're still here.
So you just wanted to hear.
So if you have any closing thoughts about the church?
We still have a caring, loving church. Our pastor is a caring, kind-hearted person, a good man.
That's the bishop.
Yes.
Yes, we've spoken.
Bishop.
Yes, and he'll be on the program for a little bit. So I thank
Before
you.
you pass, so that's what I'm dealing with.
We're doing good, and I appreciate everything today, and thank you so much for joining us. Have a blessed day.
Good afternoon, Miss Odom. How are you today?
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome to the Long Beach Public Library's recording today of Black History Month in celebration of the Christian Light Church. Anything you would like to share with us about your experiences in the church, remembrances of Reverend Evans, or anything that you would like to share with us today? And thank you.
Certainly so. My name is Jacquetta Odom. Today is February the 1st of 2022. It's the beginning of Black History Month. I am honored that Eileen Pollis, librarian, invited me to be a part of this document. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Eileen is a librarian at the Long Beach Library located at 111 West Park Avenue, Long Beach, New York. My perceptions and involvement of the Christian Light Missionary Baptist Church. My first involvement with the Christian Light Missionary Baptist Church was in the early 60s at 710 Riverside. At that time, I was not a member, but visit Sunday services frequently. I remember going to the back of a white stucco building known as the Garage, owned by Mrs. Annie Bell Reeder. In those times, she owned a rooming house and a moving company. Many times the congregation waded through sand and water to get into the church. Many Sundays, Reverend Davis, not a minister at that time, and Reverend Evans was there pumping and sweeping out water so that the community could have service. Reverend Jj Evans, a strong man and a man before his time, he could see Jesus knows all about our troubles. It was time to move forward. When Reverend Evans' house burnt down, he lost 2 children. This brought the community together. Reverend Evans rolled up his sleeves and began to work. He never took a salary from the church. He worked at the Wright Mattress Company for many years. A lot of his personal money to support the church and the community. The church, the community came together. Members, synagogues, churches, interfaith, the city of Long Beach, city officials. To name a few, it was Flashman and his brother, Robert Link and Larry Elovich. Many assisted in building the new Christian Light Missionary Baptist Church. The church stays on course to fulfill their dream. Fundraising was at a high peak. Just to note a few fundraisers that was done to help build the Christian Light Missionary Church. In-house, they had a group called the Four Seasons. That was from fall, winter, spring, and summer. They was in competition with each other to see who could raise the most money. They did dinners and cake sales. They had baby contests. They had Mr. and Mrs. Christian Light. They had trips to Pennsylvania for plays at Light and Sound. And believe it or not, Duke Ellington came to Christian Light to do a fundraiser. When enough money was raised, Reverend Evans and his congregation hired a construction company by the name of Louis Applebaum to move further on their dream. I remember Leon Brawley, an employee of Applebaum's and from the black community. He gave his all in all to fulfill this dream. 1966, Reverend Evans and his congregation marched into their new home at 620 Park Place, known today as Reverend Jj Evans Boulevard. Reverend Evans bought property in Long Beach to support the community and the church. His dream was to buy property from Park Place to Long Beach Road. He owned 116 East Pine Street and other houses down that line. He also owned 225 West Park Avenue and many more properties throughout Long Beach. I can also remember Sister Pearl Wow and the Honorable Harvey Wiesenberg that gave a lot of support and finance to the Christian Light Missionary Baptist Church. I can remember Pearl Wow, that used to call her Sister Wow, used to always come in. She enjoyed the music at Christian Light, and she brought her own tambourine, and I can see her in our church services enjoying herself. Rest, Pearl, in peace. Many blacks held their heads high on the day that they had a place they could call home. Remember, many blacks migrated from the south to the north for a better life, only to come to a splendid community. When we look at this today, Reverend Evans and his followers, community, knew many broken dreams was instilled into people of color. We are somebody. We thrive on love. The Christian Light Missionary Baptist Church took off running. We were known all over the island for our food and singing. People would come far and near to fellowship with us. Just to name a few of our famous foods: fried chicken, ham, ribs, pork chop, barbecue, pig feet, collard greens, cabbage, string beans, pinto beans, potato salad, macaroni and cheese, yams, rice, cornbread, and an assortment of homemade pies and cakes. We also had a lot of groups in our church that was famous for our singing. We had the House Rockers, the Adult Choir, the Senior Choir 1, Senior Choir 2, Young People's Choir, the Gospel Chorus, and the J.J. Evans Specials. Some of our lead singers were Jessie Mae Wilson, Evan Jones, Gloria Perry, Flossie Maddox, Corey Evans, Duke Beard, Christine Arbones, Calanthe, Martha Moretta Garrett, Wayne Van, and Rufus Parker. We had a very strong vacation Bible school ran by Sister Kathleen Williams. Thelma McGriff was our church secretary. She one time ran for the school board, but she didn't make it, but she did have the support of the black community. Some of my participations in the Christian Light Missionary Baptist Church, fundraising was one of my strong points. Along with a team, one time we raised $30,000, another time $20,000, and many other small fundraisers we did with less amount coming in. I was involved in the nurses unit, missionary circle, vacation Bible school, arts and crafts, written and directed plays, designed and decorated at many church affairs that we had, and did a lot of cooking in Christian Light Missionary Baptist Church, and so many other things that I cannot remember at this time. I close with encouragement words. We are products of God's amazing grace. We might bend, but we won't break. I want to thank Eileen Pollis for being a trailblazer to wake up some of our history in the North Park area. Christian Light Missionary Baptist Church remains a beacon of light. When you pass by, please salute our giant, Dr. J.J. Evans, pastor, will never be forgotten in the North Park area. Thank you.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Oh, thank you for sharing that. And you made me hungry. Thank you so much for joining us today. And it's very important to preserve our history.
Yes.
And thank you so much for joining us.
I was glad to be able to participate and give you my perceptions of the Christian Light Missionary Baptist Church.
And it's a good job. Well done.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
In closing, special thanks to Deanna Cruse, Deacon Garrett, Bishop Melton, Jacquetta Odom, Kathleen Williams, and her grandson, LaRon, Jessie Wilson, Reverend Evans' daughter, Margaret Wilson, Reverend Evans' granddaughter, and for all the community and their work to help build the church.